of the product development phase video, and we are now at the product life cycle. Again, every business, and I guess every person, we all have a life cycle, right? We're born, we go to adolescence, we mature, adulthood, and then at some point we go into a decline stage, and there we are. Well, every product does too. We have an introduction. It's we've just trying to commercialize that product. All right, it's launched. We want to get people to buy it. We've got growth, which means yes, sales are happening well, and people like it. And now we start to see some profitability, maturity. We've got a product out there that people like. What do we do in these every stage? And of course, at some point, sales will fail. Maybe the product is just outdated by technology and it goes away. So let's look at these phases of the product life cycle. All right, the introduction stage. This is a very expensive stage, and this is where most of your marketing costs are. And production costs are going to be right in here. You're trying to produce, you're trying to launch this product. You have to create tremendous awareness. Probably, but definitely you'll have to lead up to the product. So you'll have to have those anticipation marketing for, hey, look what's coming soon. All right. Usually in this stage, the sales are probably low because you're trying to get new adopters. You're trying to get the innovators here. You're trying to get the evangelists to buy that product. Also, depending on what product it is, if it's the traditional products that go through many retailers, you got to find the distributors. So costs are very high. Again, production costs are high, marketing costs are high. So profits are low to negative. So this is the tough stage. Do we make it to the next stage? And if we certainly don't have enough customers, then these are tough decisions, my friends. All right. So we're still in the introduction, but we are positioning the product. Remember, we position that product in the concept stage. It has to be long-term strategy. There could be an effort. Well, what if we just cut prices right now? Maybe more people will buy. What are our margins? We are going to look at pricing as one solid lecture, and we'll look at what happens when you cut your pricing, because obviously when you cut it, you're cutting your profitability, and it's very difficult, if not impossible, in today's marketplace to re-raise prices. So that could be, you're backfiring by cutting the cost too quick, especially for a pioneer, that we were going to be an amazing product or service that we have, and now we're almost giving it away. So some of the decisions that are made in here. Introduction stage, this is where so much doesn't make it. 75% of new products do not make it out of this stage. Now, we picked on Microsoft. We didn't pick on it. We just used it as a case study. What about Apple? Have they made any products that were just, not accepted at all? Yeah, they did. Again, there we go. Back to the 80s. When Apple came out, they were noted solely as a computer for education, because that's where they hit their market with very young kids and high schools. And so the business world did not take Apple seriously for literally up until about 2000. It was always known as a computer for creative professionals, sure, and students, but can it really churn out data and spreadsheets? And so Apple Lisa came out in mid 80s, and for the computer that Steve Jobs did to make it an Apple for what businesses wanted, kind of put that in that phrase, the way he wanted it to look, it came out to 10 grand. Now you're saying 10 grand, that's a lot of money. Let's go back, oh my gosh, 30 years ago. Say it ain't so. That could easily be $20,000 in today's price range, today's market. And again, it didn't do anything. There was your 3.5 disc. It didn't have a hard drive. I mean, it had a hard drive, but very, very limited capabilities, and not even a printer. So yeah, it did make it to commercialization, and I do remember seeing it in some of the computer stores that are non-existent today. But it went out very, very fast. So what happened? What happened? Hey, we liked it. but our customers didn't like it. Maybe we hit the wrong target market. Why so many fail? Maybe the positioning strategy was very weak. Perhaps we just didn't create the awareness, and no one really knew about the product. We skimped on those marketing costs, which are very important and are very costly during this stage. Competition could have been too strong. All right. Maybe we gave up too soon. The adoption process that we have gone through in this course, it just took a lot longer time. The customers maybe did not see the relative advantage of switching, but they were going to have to later on. Well, look at what Walmart did in this situation on a concept they maybe gave up too soon on. And there's the Apple Newton. That was with, I believe Scully was the CEO at the time, the person who had to fire Steve Jobs, and I think his name was Steve Scully as well. And when Steve came back to the company in the right about those mid 90s, Scully said, I think it's John Scully right now, but I'm just getting OCD. He said, "Look, Steve, look what I got here. I think this could really make it. It's the Newton, and these are what day planners, iPods, crazy phones look like in those middle 90s. And Jobs, one of his first things he did, he said, you know what? Let me see that. This is the first thing I'm going to kill. We're not making this. Because you had to put a little stylus out there, and it was your little calendar popped up and your contacts. And Scully said, why'd you do that? And he says, you wanted a stylus with a pen, and my stylus should be your hand. Okay, this is not what is acceptable to me. And of course, out of that technology did come the first iPods. So we are looking at the introduction stage. Let's go back to our driverless cars since we've been talking about that. How long will that adoption process be? A fully driverless autonomous car. I mean, not driver assisted. That maybe is a different generation needed. Because many of you in class have said, oh no, man, that's not for me. I like my car. Hey, we love our cars. When the internet came out, 1993, 94, 95, when it first came out, people did not rush to it. People were afraid of it. They did not want to put their financial information out there. They really didn't want to buy from it, for the most part. They loved the traditional relationships they had with salespeople in traditional retailing stores. And it had a very hard time for the first 2-3 years. What was the problem? And then, of course, we had a dot-com crash in the late 90s where every dot-com company, say eBay, Apple, Amazon, but really pure plays like Apple and Amazon made it because they had a defined business model. That was it. I don't think the generation was in place. We had the traditionalists still ruling the day and older baby boomers. And so now you'd say, what are you talking about? So maybe these are going to be your kids, my friends, that have the driverless car. Maybe this is not the generation yet, but we know it's going to exist. So anyone who has one right now would definitely be an innovator. And it still may be in the full testing stage, but we know that they are out there. Now, wait a second. Do you want to drive that? Have that drive you around? Or would you like to have this, the Tesla S? I'm going to see if this video will work for us here. So this is Dubai. Dubai wants to make autonomous driving heir apparent by 2030.
Welcome. Where would you like to go today?
Not too bad. Pretty cool. (2030) 25% of Dubai's transportation to be completely autonomous, and that's a YouTube video of a Tesla crashing. So, that looks so much cooler. And did have the steering wheel, so I guess you could jump up and turn it if need be. keep an eye on this, my friends. You're the generation that's going to see this and come to fruition. Other things in the product life cycle that may still be in the introduction stage in high tech. I think wearables. Again, many of you have a wearable watch, but most of this now we see a tremendous amount going to healthcare, and that where we can monitor health. If you hit the right number of steps per day, insurance companies are giving rebates of $20 to $30 to $40 a month back on your insurance premiums, and so 10 years, 65 plus will represent 22% of the United States. Right now, it's about maybe 12%, and so all sorts of monitoring going on health because we need better health. So keep your eye out for wearables. All right, we made it to the growth stage. Fantastic, 75. So we got 25% have made it. All right. Sales are climbing quickly. Adoption process, who's buying it in the growth stage? Those early adopters, those mainstream. We can kind of see the graphs of when we get to profitability. Obviously, in the product development cycle, it's not even out there. So we are investing tremendous amounts of investment. It gets a little bit lower in the introduction stage because we're still trying to find distributors and we're tremendous marketing costs. But now we see that vertical rise through profits and, of course, through sales. And so marketing costs are still high because we're still creating that awareness and still getting that buzz through, and of course starting profitability. Now, what is a critical mass? I looked this up on the internet years ago, and best guess scenarios from marketing experts would basically say for a company to keep going, you need at least 18% of expected market share for success. So if you entered into a market and you said, wow, I think our total market share in this area could be $100 million, and so we would look at that and say, at some point we've got to hit $18 million to get 18% in this area to be successful. Again, how long of time that is? Basically, that's got to be somewhere in this growth stage. In here, did we hit our expected? Are we close to it? Might be a good benchmark to think that this product can go on. Well, is anyone going to come mess with us in the growth stage? Yeah, all of a sudden, competition looks at what's been done. It's going to increase. So what do? Prices may lower because your competition has come in and lowered their price of a similar product. So again, here's a decision-making point here. Do we penetrate the market? That means we lower that costs and try to get as many shareholders as we possibly can. I'm sorry, market share. So we spend on promotion, improvements, and distribution. We really just try to blow this thing out as hard as possible. Or do we maintain high profits? That's called, we can penetrate the market, or we could skim the market. That people are buying it, we are able to maintain a high price, and we're getting a nice amount of profits. Growth stage, I think 3D printers are still in the growth stage. I think this is something you could look at in your career. How is this going to change manufacturing? Every item right here was made on a 3D printer, and remember, 3D printers don't just print resin. Okay, they can print a variety of materials, to concrete, to steel, and of course to literally living tissue. Now those are very high-tech biotech printers, but we're seeing a heart that could literally be printed on a 3D printer. I mean that's the goal. You could somehow print organs. Interesting. So there you go. There's the heart right there. Now I don't know if it's working or functional, but that's the end game. This is Big Rep 1. It can literally print a 1 meter, three-dimensional 1 meter printer. So 1 meter high, 1 meter long, 1 meter in width. And you can get some very wild things going on. So I think 3D printing may change it. Hey, 10 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, maybe it's a few more years from now, when the after parties at one of your houses, and we're all coming there about 2 a.m., and you say, oh my gosh, man, I don't have enough cups. I don't have enough plates. I need to go out and buy that. Well, you just cook your 3D printer and let that print out your plates. How many of our typical household items that we spend right now, we'll be able to reproduce in 3D printing, and hopefully at a fast rate. Right now, it is painfully slow to watch some 3D printers, but on this one right here, it's only $40,000 for the Big Rep 1. Perhaps the price has come down by now. You can get that out, printed out pretty quickly. But as speed and efficiency increase, you're going to see a lot of our consumption products that we use on an everyday basis, disposable as well, be just printed right from your home. Housing. That would be interesting. Housing is so expensive, and I fear that for you, for my Zsters and my millennials that are those late millennials, and housing is so expensive, and many of us don't want that giant house anymore. The tiny home movement's taken off, but this is something interesting. Perhaps this can bring housing to the world. This is a 3D printed home. So that's laying concrete or very industrial strength resin. 24 hours is printed. You're going to see this a lot in Russia and certainly in China. Only 10 grand to build it. Check out those appliances. And that's a mobile printer, can print on site. So that may be incredible for you on those 3D printed homes. Unfortunately, right now, I don't think a lot of our cities would like that because they want you to be in a $400,000 home so they can collect a lot of property taxes from that. But you may look at some innovative cities now. We're in Texas, so we could think down to Brownwood or right past Alvarado where there's just tremendous amounts of land that, but not too far to commute to Fort Worth. But again, if you're mainly an online business or you're able to do your work online, and yeah, we're in March 2020 in the coronavirus. So what right now, everyone is doing everything online. This may propel us to a much more online life. And so if you live 30, 40 miles away from the city, are able to have a home, of course, would cost $10,000. This is the United States. We'll sell it for $60,000, fully furnished. Still a good price for a home. And might be something to look at and think about in the future. The maturity stage. All right. Yes, it's gone to growth. We look at the flat screen TV, certainly in the maturity stage. Sales are stabilizing. Cost of productions are lower. The more you produce something, the lower the cost should be because you just get better at it. It's the learning curve. And again, I don't need to really amp up a lot of marketing and advertising. I need to keep a strong sales force via retail, a lot of social media ads, but right now I don't have to create awareness because there's nothing else I can buy right now in the TV world but a flat screen TV. Profits are high. Mainstream adopters, still by the people who have held out forever, I'm never buying this, will have to buy this TV. And of course, some of the weaker competitors have dropped out. We know Samsung right now certainly owns this market pretty well, LG, etc. What do we do? What do we do? We want to keep things fresh and fashionable and keep sales, and so we modify the product. All right? There was the iPhone 5 versus the iPhone 6, 7 versus the iPhone 10. New features, quality, creative packaging. Modify that promotion. Again, maybe we're really encouraging to switch your brand right in here. That may be the promotion. That's what we see so much in the cell phone market or the cable market, the TV market, etc. Well, you come to my brand. The iPad Pro, the big move from Apple when this came out with a few years ago, was they thought, 600 million PC devices. This was back in, 2016, 17, 18? That are 5 years or old, they're going to have to be replaced. And we know that the majority of new Apple products purchased are former PC users. And so that's the market they were going after. What about this? Does it decline? at some point it happens. We new technology comes along, sales. I just have any value to it. I'm not sure you could buy a brand new VHS VCR player at any store. I mean, like a major store. I used to see one at Walmart. One left, I think it was JVC. They kept it on stock. It hadn't been there in the last year. Yes, you could go to eBay. Yes, you could go to Amazon. But I mean, in a traditional retail store. Because what about all those tapes? The Barney tapes, all the stuff we grew up on, and that we want to watch. You can stream it. That's what. So new technology, disruptive technology has come into declining profits, and so that's what happens when it just becomes very valued. Do we keep it? Well, the strategy is you harvest it. You put nothing into it. You don't advertise. You just keep it on the shelf. And as long as there's a profitability on there, the second there's profit that we know it's gone, it's too expensive even to ship out. Again, maybe it can be sold overseas, maybe it can be sold into a different market. Once that all dries up, we simply just drop it. Interesting question. Can a dead product ever be resurrected? Well, probably the brand can be resurrected. And the product itself, let's see. Converse. If I were to ask how many of you have a pair of Converse shoes, I would say, or ever have had one in the last few years, you get a lot of hands raised in class. Remember, Converse is the Chuck Taylor All-Star shoes. Converse owned the market from like the 1920s to about the 1960s. You can still go back and look at NBA professional basketball players wearing Converse. Wearing them to school, your workout. It was a Converse world, and so there we are, 1923. They owned it for 50 years. Well, in the late 70s, Nike comes out. All right, Reebok comes out. Adidas comes out, much stronger in the United States market, and so they didn't do anything to change their design, and so they simply couldn't compete. By 2001, Converse had filed for bankruptcy. And yet you're still wearing a pair. I wonder why. Oh, because Nike bought it in 2003. A newer, younger management team. There's a niche out there, a niche market, loyal artistic self-expression. Let the customers drive the brand, and it brings in about, in sales, $1.3 billion a year to the Nike Corporation. So yes, a brand can be resurrected. All right, with the right environment and the right type of leadership and direction. What about the Ford? The Ford Ranger that stopped production almost a decade ago, and now it's back into production. Certainly does not look anything like the 1980s or 90s little old Ford Ranger. It's all tricked out. And of course, the Bronco. For those of you who are Bronco fans, there is a cult of Bronco fans that is alive and well and strong throughout the world. And so the new Bronco is now out. And I think it's this year is the debut. It may have been last year, but we're pulling it back in. And of course, there was a lot of rumor that the FJ Cruiser, which is the Toyota Jeep, was going to be retooled and remodeled and reproduced. That's still a rumor. But the Supra came back, and the Supra was a great car of the 1980s, and now that you could buy for literally $18,000. And now I think we're just going to transpose that, $80,000 today. So yes, brands can be resurrected and new products can be reintroduced, repositioned, and do very well. That concludes our product development cycle for the marketing mix. And now we're going to go into our next video in pricing. And this is important, my friends, especially for our marketing plan that we're doing for Sophia. Now, if you have your own marketing plan, again, what products will you bring in? What's your product or service strategy? Will you have just one, and then bring on others later on? Yeah, put that down on your marketing mix. For Sophia, she's doing the vegan, Latin, Tex-Mex food. So we've got some dishes already. What else could she bring into? What are the services? Again, think about her catering. That could be a service she could bring online later on, and doing just different unique things like that, parties, quinceañeras, weddings, great events that she could do. So I hope that helps out. And our next one will be pricing.